May 8th, 2026. In the port of Camaçari, Brazil, a massive cargo ship lowers its ramp. Thousands of identical electric SUVs begin rolling onto the dock. This is the three-body strategy in action. BYD isn't just sending cars overseas, they are bringing an entire industrial ecosystem to the West. In 2025, the automotive world witnessed a historic flip. Tesla, the pioneer of the electric vehicle revolution, was officially dethroned. BYD delivered over 2.2 million all-electric cars that year, while Tesla's deliveries actually shrank by 9%. Western experts were stunned by the speed of the overtake. They used to laugh at this company as a simple battery supplier. Now, legacy car makers are calling it an existential threat. Jim Farley of Ford admitted he didn't want to give his BYD up. And to understand how we reached this point, we have to look back to 1995, because BYD didn't win by being a better car company. They won by building a vertical fortress that Musk couldn't breach. In 1995, Wang Chuanfu didn't want to build cars. He wanted to master the chemistry of the future. Wang was a young researcher in Beijing. He moved to Shenzhen with a small loan and a massive goal. At the time, mobile phones were the most valuable gadgets on Earth. Companies like Nokia and Motorola needed batteries that didn't die. Wang obsessed over the movement of ions inside a cell. He treated a battery as a holy object. This earned him the nickname of an engineering priest. While Western firms outsourced their manufacturing, Wang did the opposite. He built his own production lines by hand. This was the first step in his vertical fortress. He replaced expensive robots with precise human labor. This saved him millions in capital costs. BYD quickly became the second largest battery maker in the world. They were powering the devices in everyone's pockets. But Wang saw a bigger game on the horizon. He realized that an electric car is just a mobile battery pack. It is a battery with 4 wheels and a steering column. He had a 15-year head start on the fundamentals. Silicon Valley was still focused on software and internet startups. Tesla was still years away from its first prototype. So, in 2003, Wang made a move that confused his investors. He used his battery profits to buy a failing car company. It was called Xinchuan Auto. The market hated the decision. BYD's stock price plummeted 20% in a single day. Investors thought he was throwing away a successful business. They didn't understand his industrial logic. He wasn't buying a car brand. He was buying a shell to house his chemical inventions. He was creating the world's first battery company with wheels. But to survive, he needed a signal to the rest of the world. He needed someone with massive credibility to see what he saw. Then, he was about to get a phone call from a billionaire in Omaha. The call came from Berkshire Hathaway. Charlie Munger had spent his life studying successful leaders. He saw something in Wang Chuanfu that most people missed. Munger told Warren Buffett that Wang was a unique hybrid. He called him a combination of Thomas Edison and Jack Welch. Edison for his technical genius, Welch for his brutal operational discipline. In 2008, Berkshire Hathaway invested $230 million. They took a 10% stake in BYD. This was the ultimate seal of approval. The world finally stopped laughing at the battery maker. The investment provided the institutional credibility Wang needed. He used the cash to double down on his industrial plan. He wasn't just building cars, he was building the factories that built the cars. He began buying lithium mines in South America and Africa. He wanted to own the raw materials at the very bottom. This was a strategic hedge against future price spikes. BYD was becoming a self-contained island in a globalized world. They were developing their own motors and power electronics. While Tesla was struggling with the Roadster, BYD was perfecting the F3 DM. It was the world's first mass-produced plug-in hybrid. Wang was proving that vertical integration was his secret sauce. He controlled every gear in the machine, but a bigger challenge was coming. The world was shifting to pure electric vehicles, and to win that war, he needed to reinvent the battery itself. He needed a breakthrough that would make his cars impossible to ignore. To understand BYD's dominance, you have to look inside the car. Most automakers are actually just assemblers. They buy parts from thousands of different suppliers. If a single factory in Germany or Japan stops, their line stops. But BYD built a vertical fortress. They produce 75% of their own components in-house. Tesla's in-house production for the Model 3 sits at 46%, but BYD makes its own seats, its own motors, and its own lights. They even design and manufacture their own semiconductors. During the global chip shortage, Western factories stood still. BYD's assembly lines never stopped moving. They had their own supply of silicon while others were begging for it. This internal control provides a massive financial cushion. It allows BYD to produce a car for 15% less than Tesla. But the heart of the fortress is the Blade Battery 2.0. BYD moved away from the expensive cobalt used by their rivals. They perfected a system using lithium manganese iron phosphate. This is the LMFP chemistry. It solves the biggest problem with cheap batteries. It packs 20% more energy into the same space. The Blade 2.0 uses a formula called 8C flash charging. It can add 500 kilometers of range in 5 minutes. This is nearly 3 times faster than a standard Tesla supercharger. It also stays stable at 20 degrees below zero. This technical edge was not built overnight. It was the result of owning the entire value chain. BYD is the only company that mines the lithium and builds the car. They don't pay a markup to any middleman. This makes them the most efficient manufacturing engine on the planet. But there is another secret to their massive profits. It's a specific product that Tesla refuses to build, and it's the reason BYD has an endless supply of cash for the price war. There is a massive misconception about the electric vehicle market. People think you have to be pure electric to win. Elon Musk has gambled everything on this idea, but Wang Chuanfu found a different path to victory. He used the plug-in hybrid as a strategic shield. In 2025, BYD sold over 2.2 million hybrids. This was a 50-50 split with their all-electric sales. Hybrids are the secret cash flow driver of the company. They require smaller, cheaper batteries than pure electric cars, but they sell for nearly the same price. This creates a massive profit margin that Tesla simply doesn't have. The hybrids act as a hedge against a slowing market. If pure electric demand drops, BYD just sells more hybrids. This creates an unfair advantage in a price war. Tesla is forced to cut prices and sacrifice its primary margins, but BYD uses its hybrid profits to subsidize its electric cars. They are fighting a war with a bank account that never runs dry. This is how they survived the 2026 involution. In China, the competition became so brutal, it was called a race to the bottom. BYD cut prices on 20 different models by 34%. Their competitors were pushed to the brink of bankruptcy, but BYD's operating cash flow actually surged by over 100%. They were sacrificing short-term profits for total market control. Western executives finally began to see the threat. The leader of one of America's oldest car companies made a shocking admission. He realized that the game had changed forever. By the end of 2025, The automotive hierarchy finally shattered. The long-anticipated flip had become an official reality. Tesla's deliveries contracted by 9% in a single year. Elon Musk's empire was facing its first major retreat, but BYD was moving in the opposite direction. They finished the year with over 2.2 million electric sales. This was nearly 30% increase from the year before. The battery maker from Shenzhen was now the world champion. Western executives began to realize they were in an existential fight. Jim Farley, the CEO of Ford, had a moment of clarity. He spent 6 months driving a Chinese electric sedan called the SU7. In a public interview, he admitted he didn't want to give it up. He called the influx of Chinese cars a devastating threat. Farley's epiphany was a wake-up call for the entire American industry. It proved that BYD wasn't just winning on price. They were winning on technology and user experience. The China speed of manufacturing had surpassed the West. While Detroit was still debating battery chemistry, BYD was perfecting it. They had built a lead that seemed impossible to close. But the crown of the champion comes with a massive target. Global leaders began raising a new wall of protectionism. High tariffs were meant to slow the Chinese advance. However, BYD was already planning its next move. They weren't going to just ship cars across the ocean, they were going to build the factories in their rivals' backyard. This was the start of a brutal new phase of the war, and it would test the limits of BYD's global ambition. In early 2026, the battle moved into a period of trench warfare. Tesla launched a fierce counterattack to reclaim its crown. In the first quarter, Tesla delivered 358,000 cars. They narrowly beat BYD's 310,000 deliveries. Musk was leaning on his massive inventory and global brand power, but this short-term win came at a terrible financial cost. Tesla's gross margins slipped below 16%. Meanwhile, BYD was facing its own crisis at home. The Chinese market had entered a cycle called involution. It is a race to the bottom where profit is sacrificed for survival. BYD's quarterly profit plunged to its lowest level in 3 years. They were forced to slash prices to maintain their domestic lead. To escape this pressure, BYD implemented the three-body strategy. This meant localizing production in every major region. They broke ground on a massive plant in Szeged, Hungary. They started pilot production at a mega factory in Camaçari, Brazil. But this hypergrowth created a dark trail of controversy. In Brazil, investigators placed BYD on a dirty list of employers. They found Chinese migrant laborers working in slavery-like conditions. Workers were reportedly forced to work 12-hour shifts for weeks. Some alleged their passports were held as collateral. This was the brutal reality behind the high-speed expansion. The engineering priest was facing a moral and political backlash. Western governments used these scandals to justify even higher tariffs. But BYD is still pushing forward with its next-generation tech. They are moving past the car itself and into the infrastructure. They are building the roads that the world will drive on in 2050. The battle for the electric crown has moved past the car. It is now a fight for the infrastructure of the future. BYD is currently installing 20,000 flash charging stations across the globe. Tesla still leads with 60,000 supercharger stalls, but BYD is closing the gap with its God's Eye sensor architecture. This system uses 12 cameras and 3 LiDAR units. It processes data with 600 TOPS of computing power. This is the new hierarchy of the global road. The laboratory of Shenzhen has broken the Western monopoly on innovation. The road to 2050 was mapped in Silicon Valley, but it is being built in the factories of southern China. The transition to electric is no longer a goal. It is a finished reality. The machine is now running itself.